Hi guys, it's Jeff at Slavens Racing. I'm up here on one of my favorite trails doing some testing. It's an area I've tested in for 40 plus years. So I know it well, I know all the rocks and roots, and I just ram into a lot of them that I would normally kind of ride around just to test the suspension. I've got some revalved stock suspension on here. It was revalved by Greg at Factory Suspension Works here in Colorado. And so far I'm about, I don't know, 10 maybe 12 miles up the trail, and it's fantastic so far. I'm going to get into some more rocks up ahead here, and we'll see how it works, but I'm very impressed. It's totally transformed this bike into from a buck and bronco to a woods weapon. I mean, it's absolutely very impressive. So these next few sections here, until I get up to some more rocks, I'm going to take it easy, and I'm going to grunt this thing so you guys have emailed me a bunch wanting to know, how it pulls down low, how it grunts, if it's smooth or what the power is like. And so I'm going to let you listen to it. So here we go. First off, I'm going to start in second gear, which is easy to do on this bike. About a quarter throttle, but that's how I ride all the time. I don't whack the throttle a lot. This is third gear. Fourth gear. I didn't even feel them. So do it again. Those are pretty small. This thing has amazing torque. It's an excellent motor. Didn't even feel that root either. straight now. It's not giving me any harsh hits. It's not deflecting. The rocks and the roots, stuff that most guys would probably normally go around. I'm just hitting Okay guys, as you can see there, I wasn't taking the smooth line, the normal zigzag line. I was pointing it straight right through the rock piles. And it remains straight. I mean, this thing tracks extremely well now. I do have to say this 23 XC chassis is very stable, has a very confidence-inspiring stableness to it. When you point it in a straight line, and you're on the gas. You know, I can't say it enough. This motor is just fantastic. I keep calling it a monster motor, which kind of probably makes people think that it's motocross style light switch power, but it's nowhere near that. It's totally opposite. It'll grunt and pull down low. You know, if you're good with the throttle, this thing will just put the power down, providing you have good suspension, providing you have good tires. The stock tires are, for this type of terrain, they're absolutely horrible. I mean, I lowered the pressures. No matter what I did, those stock Dunlops just sucked in this terrain. This stuff is dry and slick. Even though we've gotten some snow, you can still see that the snow didn't do anything. It's still extremely slick, and now that I've put a good tire on the back, I've got a IRC VE33S on the back, and with 5 pounds in it, it's working extremely well today. I've got a X31 Bridgestone on the front, my favorite tire. It's an incredibly good tire, and I've got 11.5 pounds in that. I got the new Revalved forks and shock and a spring to match my weight, which is a 48. I'm dressed, I'm about, let's see, I'm about 240 dressed. You know, I'm 210, and about, you know, 25 to 30 pounds of stuff. You know, because just your riding gear with your helmet, boots, and pants and jersey and stuff, that's usually close to 15 pounds. And I've easily got another 10 to 15 pounds worth of stuff in my pack and my backpack. So the 48 was working really well on the back. Guys, this bike went from something I didn't enjoy riding at all, other than the motor, to a fantastic bike, just by changing the tires and changing the suspension. Now this suspension, this bike still doesn't, it turns about this, I'm going to say it doesn't turn quite as well as my XC TBI does, although everybody I've talked to, you know, is raving about the steering on these. And don't get me wrong, it's got a very planted front end. It's an excellent front end, but you know, I'm kind of, it's not fair because my PDS bike, my XC TBI 300, it's got a blackjack Raven fork on the front, and it's got a National Shock on the back, and those forks really improve the steering on my XC TBI, and now it's actually better than this bike as far as steering goes, as far as having a planted front end and being able to keep it on the line that you want it to be on. You know, the Raven forks are extremely precise. This fork is not that, it's not as precise. It's still an excellent fork. So guys, my next thing to do on this bike is I'm gonna put some Lucky cartridges in these forks, and I'll leave this Revalved shock on the back. So by the way, this setup, guys complain, I mean, without even knowing what they're talking about, you know, without doing any research, that you know, it's $3,000 to get your bike, your suspension set up, your stock suspensions. Well, that's not true. Greg at Factory Suspension Works. Now, let me do some full disclosure here, guys. Greg and I are good friends, have been for a long time. We ride together. He's on the other side of the state, so I don't ride with him very much, but we do ride a couple times every summer together. Greg's an excellent rider. So full disclosure, you know, we are friends and riding buddies, and I make nothing, absolutely nothing off of promoting his suspension. Actually, it costs the store money, because if you're having him revalve your suspension, you're probably not going to be buying some of our suspension components. So, you know, it's actually a negative for me to recommend him, but I want guys to have some options. This is, you know, the bare bones option, and by no means is it a bare bones performance, but bare bones price wise, $965 is what he charges to revalve the front and the rear on this. Now if you add a shock spring to it, because you don't need fork springs because it's an air fork, if you add a shock spring to it, then that gets it up about $1,100. So if your weight works for the stock spring, $965. If you're bigger or smaller and you need a different shock spring, well, that's $1,100. I'm sorry guys, but that is not much money to have your suspension custom tuned by a guy who rides nothing but rocks and roots and is relentless on getting things right. He's extremely anal about it. His work quality is excellent, his build quality, and this he got a 250 4-stroke in a couple months ago when they were available with this new chassis, and he's had this the stock shock apart over 20 times trying to get it the way he wanted it. He was that picky about it. So I don't think there's anybody else in the country like him that does that. Most of the bigger suspension shops do very little trail testing, especially in rocks and roots, and they do a lot of testing on their shock dyno, which I love shock dynos, don't get me wrong, but they can't simulate what goes on out here. All right guys, I hope this helps you a little bit. I'm going to head back down the mountain here, and I believe that's all for now.